everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you might be joining us from in the world today. My name is Meg Alexander, and I am, as always, honored and excited to get to host another Power to Fly Chat and Learn virtual event. Quick call out, my name is Meg. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And for a visual descriptor, I'm a 38-year-old white woman. I have blue glasses, pink and purple and blue hair, and I'm wearing a gray sweater. Now, today we are going to be talking to a person from an absolutely amazing organization from Moody's. But before I introduce you to them, just a quick hi and hello, because we're going to be talking about Tech Newbie to Tech Navigator. We're going to be discussing this person's unconventional journey to engineering management and some of the lessons that they picked up along the way. Now, if you are new to Power to Fly, or if today is your first event with us, then hi, welcome. We're so happy to meet you. Now, the love is no less real for my frequent flyers. So thank you to everybody who's coming out and joining us today. Whether today is your first event or your 50th, we are so happy to see you today. Now, I do want to go over some quick housekeeping items. These will be especially important if today is your first event. But the biggest thing to know is participation. We are here because of all of you, and we want to make sure that y'all are able to participate in today's event to whatever extent you prefer. Now, that can be as simple as turning your cameras on if you'd like, but truly, y'all, there is no need to be Instagram perfect, okay? You can bring your messy buns, your bathrobes, your non-conventional workspaces, all of that stuff. We don't stand on ceremony here. We just want to meet you where you are. Now, we are recording today's event, and what that means for all of you is you don't have to take notes. You get to sit back, relax, enjoy the conversation that I'm about to have with Nathalie, and not have to worry if you miss a resource or a link that we list or anything like that. All right. So what that means for all of you is that in about 4 to 5 business days, Power to Fly is going to email everybody with a link to where you can rewatch this recording once it goes live on powertofly.com. So, a nice little reminder to refresh and, oh yeah, maybe I want to forward that off to one of my friends or something. Now, let's say that Nathalie says something today so like mind-blowing, paradigm shifting. You can't wait 4 to 5 business days to share it with someone else. You don't have to. We are live streaming to YouTube right now. Hi, YouTube. And the video will usually be posted to our YouTube channel by the end of business today. Now, I see that Ria is sharing links for all of this in the chat thread. So thank you all. Thank you so much, Ria. I love, love, love that. And the other thing that I want to encourage y'all to do in this chat space as well, please feel free to ask questions. You are welcome to dive in if you want to ask any additional questions, or if you have thoughts that you want to be raised but you want to be kept anonymous, no worries. You can always send in any questions you have in the chat, and for anything you want to be raised anonymously, just DM it to me. You can find my name, Meg Alexander, in the drop down in your Zoom group chat. Hi, Nicole. Hi, Nicole. Nice to see you again. Oh, and Melissa's back. Thanks, Melissa, for coming. All right, now, like I said, please feel free to let us know in the chat. And as you're in there, you're welcome to network and connect with your fellow attendees. Now, I am going to refer you really quickly to the code of conduct. Okay, this looks scary. It's a big wall of legalese, but basically what it boils down to is don't be a jerk. Okay, operate from a place of kindness and respect, and it's pretty hard to go wrong from there. If you have any questions on that, you can always DM me. As always, happy to help with anything we can. Now, today we are going to be talking to a person from Moody's. Now, I'm not sure if anybody is aware of Moody's. I think they have name brand recognition for most of us. But in a world that is shaped by increasingly interconnected risks, Moody's helps customers to develop a holistic view of these risks to advance their business and act decisively. With a rich history of expertise in global markets and a diverse workforce spread over 40 countries, Moody's unites the brightest minds to turn today's risk into tomorrow's opportunities. Now, if anything that we say today piques your interest about Moody's, I really encourage you to check out their company page on powertofly.com. That's what you're seeing right here. This page is going to have a lot of really helpful stuff for you. And if you stick around toward the end of today's event, I can let y'all know some ways that you can maximize this page in your job search to try and make that a little bit easier, or to prepare you for an interview with Moody's in case you get to that step. The one thing I do want to highlight here is 2 things. First off, the jobs tab, that's the one in the middle here. That's the one that everybody wants. And I will encourage you that if you do want to apply to any and all roles via powertofly.com, that's awesome. And I really, really encourage you to do that. But it's something that I encourage because it puts an extra eye on your application as it moves throughout the process with Moody's or with any of our partner companies. So it's a really good option. And if you're at all curious about what else Power to Fly can do for you in your job search, please feel free to reach out to us. Our inbox is hi@poweredfly.com. Last thing I want to highlight here is this QR code. That's going to enable you to follow Moody's right away. And following Moody's means that you will not miss out on any roles that they post, and Power to Fly will let Moody's know that you're interested. So if you want more details on that, stick around for a little bit after today's event. All right, now I'm very, very excited to bring up on stage with me the woman of the hour, Nathalie Flower. Now, Nathalie is an engineering manager at Moody's, and she's taken a unique path coming from a non-technical background. Now, she's found her strengths in quickly understanding complex technical concepts and bridging the gap between technical and non-technical teams. Nathalie's passion lies in building psychologically safe teams where individuals feel comfortable bringing their whole selves to work. Now, outside of work, Nathalie enjoys spending time with her cat and dog, as well as her ever-growing Lego collection. Dear Lord, English can't be this hard. It's the only language I speak. Nathalie, I'm bringing you up on stage to spotlight instead of me.
Hello.
Else would you like our audience members to know about you?
Yeah. So hi, I'm Nathalie Flower. I'm an engineering manager at Moody's. I've been with Moody's for just over 2 years now. I live in England, just outside Cambridge, UK, for those of you who know what that is. And yeah, so I guess the big thing is that this is my unconventional journey. So I guess a bit about my background is that I originally wanted to be a doctor, and I started studying medicine at university before switching into tech as a junior software engineer after a bunch of temp jobs. But I'm sure more of that will come out as we talk today.
Absolutely. I'm honestly, as somebody who also has a very unconventional journey through the working world, I really love these chats where I get to talk to somebody else who's also kind of taken the path less traveled, or, you know, more of an unusual route to get there. So I'm very excited for today's event. Real quick reminder for y'all, please feel free to ask questions if you've got them. I do want to highlight the Q&A bucket. That's a tool that we're utilizing on more and more Power to Fly events. So if you haven't seen this before, in your Zoom toolbar, there's a chat button, so that'll give you your chat pop-up, but there's a separate one that you can click that says Q&A. If you open it up, there's 6 questions in there currently. These are all based on questions that we saw at registration. So if you are interested or have any questions for Nathalie today, please feel free to send in any and all questions into that question and answer space. And whether you have a question to add to that bucket or not, I really encourage you to go in there, take a look at the questions, and then utilize the thumbs up button on any question that you are also interested in learning. That's going to help me to make sure that I prioritize the information that you all came to get here today. And it's how we try and kind of, reward the people that come to be here with us on the live recording. We want to make sure that the time that you spend with Moody's is worth it. So please feel free, let us know, vote and add your own questions. Let us know what you're most interested in learning today, so that way we can make sure that happens for you. All right, so to get us started, obviously we have a lot of questions to go through. But one thing I want to talk about is, could you give us a kind of high level overview of your journey? You've started from tech novice into engineering management, but could you tell us a little bit about what that was like for you going through it?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a whirlwind, to be honest. So yeah, like I said, I started out very convinced that I wanted to be a doctor, started studying medicine, and got to about 3-4 years in and just sort of realized that, like, had a existential crisis of, like, what am I doing? I don't think this is what I want to be doing at all. And so, like, I was like, right, I'm going to take a year out and try and decide what I want to do and go from there. And I was up in Scotland at university at the time. And I moved down to Cambridge to lodge with a family friend who had a spare room, and I was really into rowing at the time, and I was like, so Cambridge is the place to be if you want to row, right? And so yeah, so I just sort of moved to Cambridge with no real plan. I was like, right, okay, I need to get a job. So I got a temp job in a school, and they basically hired me to do data entry. And quite quickly, this became quite tedious. And I was like, well, there must be a better way of doing this, right? And so I started learning a little bit of SQL and a little bit of scripting, and was like, okay, so we can do this in a much faster way. And I got really excited by it. And before I knew it, I was like, oh, can I tinker with the website a bit and stuff like that. And that was really how I got started. And then I moved to a different school where the actual role was about database management and looking after their like big school database and stuff like that. And I started writing a little bit of PHP for like a job application website and stuff like that. And then I was like, right, okay, I actually really think I quite like this tech coding space, like not something I'd ever considered in my life. Absolutely not something that was even sort of on the radar for me when I was at school. And so I applied to a junior software position at the Royal Society of Chemistry, and like, a story for another day, but the interview process was honestly the most hilarious and amusing experience of my life. And I was absolutely adamant I was never going to get this job. And lo and behold, I did. I basically I had to do a technical test, and I turned up to the interview being really proud of this technical test that I'd done. And it turned out that I'd actually only done like the first line of it, which was like a reverse, just to do a command line and reverse a string. And like, I was so proud of myself. And they were like, "Is this what you meant to submit?" As like, and I was just like, "Yeah, it's great, isn't it?" No, like, yeah, it's not the question. So yeah, it was all a bit of a disaster. But yeah, anyway, I got the job, and somehow, and spent 2 years there, where I sort of learned a C# and APIs and a bit of back endy, how to do agile, all of that kind of fun stuff. And then yeah, moved into being a software engineer, and then moved more into sort of DevOps, SRE, cloud space, sure, why not? That's the thing. Cloud engineering. And then, yeah, moved to my previous role before this one, which was very much a senior DevOps role, very hands-on, very techy. And there I was given the opportunity to move internally to head up our DevSecOps team. Or lead the DevSecOps team, which was like a completely new space for me. Completely, like, I'd never really touched security before or anything like that. And yeah, and then from there, I really discovered that I really loved the more like high level strategy side of things. I was getting really into like working with different teams. How do you like empower people to work on the stuff that needs to get done? And just, yeah, like very much more focused on growing the organization rather than just like the knowledge of tech, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think it's really telling that, it's something that you started doing based on like kind of a pain point in whatever you were working on. But I love when people find stuff like this, because then it truly, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, yeah, you're following the curiosity. You're following the, how do I make this easier? And when you are curious about something, as opposed to just trying to like shove it into your brain, it's a lot easier for it to stick. And I very much appreciate that you were, you didn't just like, I feel like I've done this a bunch of times where I've hit on something and been like, oh yeah, this is an easier way to do that. So anyway, back to the hard stuff that I don't really like, but I very much appreciate that you were like, this was really cool. Maybe this is what I should actually be doing. I think that's great. Do you think there were any key milestones in this journey that really had to occur, for you to find this path?
Yeah, I think so. Organically, it kind of did happen organically to a sense. So with every career role change I made, there was sort of like a level of promotion in there, and that was definitely something I was looking for when I was changing roles. I was very much looking to move, vertically rather than horizontally. I guess some of the big milestones that were really called out for me were like getting to a point where I was feeling like I wasn't progressing anymore in the role or that company. And I sort of hit the point where like I wasn't sure what came next. So I think if I'd never hit any of those milestones, I definitely wouldn't have moved roles, which meant that I guess I wouldn't have the breadth of experience that I have now. Like I could have stayed in the same place and maybe progressed upwards, but I think having a variety of different organizations and different institutions is really helpful.
Yeah, of course. Well, and it kind of just serves to make you even more of a unique candidate, which, based on all the things that I hear from hiring managers, like the more unique you are, the more you're bringing to the table, the more you are a culture add for companies and for teams. So I think that's really, really wonderful. Okay, how did you decide to transition from being an individual contributor to being a manager? We have entire chats where we only talk about this part of the question or of the journey. So I know this is a big question, but for you, how did you make that decision?
Weirdly, I think I made it quite early on in my career. I remember sort of even when I was a junior software engineer, I set myself this goal of by the time I'm 35, I want to see at the table. And I've met that, so but yeah, that was very much the thing I always was striving for. So I guess when I was thinking about like where to go next in my career, it was always with that end goal in mind, if that makes sense. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, I think that's a really, because here's the thing, there are some people that kind of struggle with this and they think that they want some of column A and some of column B. There's people that feel like moving up to management is just what's expected. You know what I mean? Like a lot of us are told, like, well, you keep advancing. That's what you do. It's kind of like, I don't know, when I was a kid, it was like, okay, you're going to go to grade school, then high school, then you go to college, because that's what you do. So I think it is, I think it's interesting to talk about this with different people, because that impetus or that thing that makes you think like, should I keep on being an IC, or do I want to go into a management role? I think that happens really differently for a lot of people. So I think that's good.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I was really lucky in my previous role before I was here. I was given the opportunity to experiment a lot. It wasn't like a set track of you either go stay hardcore engineering route or you go into management route. There was the opportunity to do that lead role. So there was, you know, a bit of management in there, a bit of picking this up, a bit of picking that up. It was kind of like job pick and mix. It was fantastic. So it was like, yeah, build like what you feel you're going to enjoy working on. And I think that was really helpful for me. And I think at the end of that was very much when I made the decision of, okay, when I look back now over this time and the things that I'm choosing to work on, it makes much more sense for me to move into sort of a management style role than stay as an IC.
Okay. All right. So let's talk from the perspective of, someone else who's kind of coming up behind you. If they're considering a switch to management, how do you recommend people assess for themselves if they are ready for the role? This can be really
Yeah,
difficult, I feel like.
this is really difficult. I would honestly say that I don't think you can ever really know if you're ready. Like I still don't feel ready on some days now. But if you've had some really fantastic managers in the past, which I've really been lucky that I have, I've kind of looked at them and gone, when I am a grown up, I want to be just like you. So I think that was really inspirational for me. And the other thing is like, if you're doing mentoring and coaching and things like that, that's a really good opportunity to sort of understand or get a feel for, like, do you like this sort of, people development side of things? I think there's quite like maybe controversially now, I'm going to say that there's quite like a lot of roles I see at the moment, which is like still being an IC and a manager. And I think to balance both of those like together and do well at them is incredibly challenging. Like I have
That sounds
6
kind of like a
direct
unicorn
reports.
role, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have 6 direct reports, and I like spending time with them, and I like investing time with them. I don't want to have to say, I'm sorry, I really need to go and finish this Jira ticket or whatever. Like, yeah. So I guess wrapping it back around is that you have to really want to do the people side of things to go into management. Yeah.
I think that's a really good thing to know, because I mean, there's a lot of Brittany chimed in actually saying having a manager who is an IC is just not an effective process. And I absolutely agree. And you're right. I mean, when we're thinking about moving up into management, I feel like a lot of times you think about the mastery of the skills that you needed and like the knowledge base you need. But you're right. It's a different type of position, and there are different challenges associated with that. So yeah, I think you're right. It requires that you be pretty pragmatic about both the things that you like that will continue on and the things that you don't know how to do that you're going to have to learn. Not because you can't learn it, but just like you said, if you, without any further kind of real study or investigation, it's real easy to kind of get into the management role and then realize, oh, that's right. I have to manage the people, not just sit at the big desk. So yeah, I think that's good. All right, I want to go into the question bucket, the Q&A bucket. So I'm gonna go check and see what question has the most upvotes right now. Ooh, okay, good. This is a good one. People want to know, what was the biggest challenge that you faced in your journey and how did you overcome it? This is a very like wide open question, but does anything come to mind?
It does. I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump to my notes because I did write some things down. Yeah. So, and this is probably something I still struggle with, if I'm honest, is taking things personally. So like as an IC, you know, I find it much easier to separate myself from my work. Like my code wasn't a representation of who I am as a human being, but how I treat my direct reports on a day-to-day basis is definitely a reflection of who I am as a human being. And if I get that wrong, then yes, I do feel terrible, and it is hard and it is challenging. Like people have feelings, and I don't think we should ever like, you know, skirt around that. So I think, yeah, honestly, the hardest challenge I have is taking a step back sometimes and assessing that it's okay to make mistakes. Like you're never gonna handle every situation perfectly. And yeah, I mean, I'm very lucky that I have a team that is very supportive of me as like someone who's moved into management and as my first management role. So they give me space to make mistakes, as well as you know, vice versa. But yeah, I honestly, I have conversations with my partner in the evening, and where he's just like, you can't take all of this on yourself all of the time, because like it's just not healthy. But yeah, I still think that is definitely the biggest challenge I face.
Yeah, absolutely. That compartmentalization, especially, I don't know about you, but like when I hit this hard when I started working for Powerfly, like in 2019, and then 2020 comes around and I'm loving what I'm doing, but I'm throwing everything into work to the detriment of other stuff. You know what I mean? And so I completely get what you mean there, where it's like, because the work feels important, or because I like what I'm doing, I'm feeling effective. It's really, I mean, that is, they say cocaine's a heck of a drug, but dang, man, feeling productive and connected to the mission is something else. Like it's really easy to throw too much at it and not realize that you're kind of, I don't know, you're gonna burn yourself out on it. It's rough.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Something that goes along with this conversation a lot is talk
Okay.
about imposter syndrome.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know about you, raging case of it over here. I'm pretty sure that anything that I can do is not that difficult and not that impressive. But if other people can do it, it's like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. How did you manage to blah, blah, blah? So for you, how do you manage like self-doubt or imposter syndrome when you're sitting in a leadership role?
Oh yeah. So I mean, this is really multifaceted, and definitely probably could warrant a talk on its own. Imposter syndrome evolves as you change your role. I would probably say that I struggle with it more now sometimes than I ever have previously. And that's because you see these people around you, particularly at Moody's. You know, you said earlier that we hire brilliant, very clever people, and to be sat in a room with them, and you're like, why did they pick me? Like I'm just here with my Lego collection, right? Like I've got no
My
idea.
Funkos are staring at your Legos going, yes.
Yeah, exactly. And so yeah, so I mean, I often say, like, I really frequently feel like I'm like 10 cane toads in a trench coat just rocking up to work every day, wondering like when someone's going to figure out that I'm like a lizard underneath all of this. So yeah, it is a challenge. But on the flip side, I was having this conversation with a colleague this morning. I think it's honestly, imposter syndrome is a superpower. Like it's what drives people to continually develop. Like the fact that you sit there and you question yourself and think, okay, I'm not good enough, is what drives you to go, okay, what more do I need to know? Like, what do I need to learn? And for me, I think that's been so helpful. Like the minute I think I'd ever got complacent, I don't think I'd progress anymore, right? So yeah, I think the other big strategy is, and this has been really, really helpful for me, is the team I actually came in to manage. They use a technology stack that I am not familiar with. I have never worked with in my life. They code in Rust. I have never written a line of Rust in my life. I don't really plan on doing it for work. I might do it socially if I'm, you know, feeling a bit mad one day. But so when they come to me with a technical problem, my only answer is I don't know. So there's this like nice thing that there isn't the pressure on me to have the technical answers, because that's not my background. Whereas I think if I'd moved into like a leadership or management role in a technology that I was more familiar with, I think I would very much internalize that and be like, oh, I've worked on this stuff. I feel like I have to know this. So yeah, so I think being okay with not knowing, and I think the more more I do, the more I realize I don't know, right? And being comfortable
Which is
with that.
healthy. Let's talk
Yeah,
about that. Like, stupid people don't think constantly about the things that they don't know. All right. That
right.
like curious people do. That's, knowing that you don't know everything means you're probably smarter than you think.
Definitely. 100% agree with that.
I'm loving all of this. There's messages coming in the chat as well. Let's see. Chris Bloom had chimed in saying 20 plus years in software and imposter syndrome is still a thing for me. If you're feeling it in your early career, take some comfort that even seniors and upper level folks feel it too. It's not just you. That is absolutely true.
So
Um,
true.
y'all give me a +1 in the chat or throw an emoji in there or something if you also deal with imposter syndrome, because I think this is Farley. Your gosh, y'all, English is the only language I speak. No, it is broadly applicable. I think there's a lot of us that go through it. And it is also one of those situations where, like you said, you're giving yourself grace, right? You're saying, I'm in charge and I need to help identify an answer, but it's not just on you. You know what I mean? Like, yes, you're in charge, but you're in charge and leading the group. So I think it's really, I love working with the external mechanism of course, I'm not going to know the answer because I don't know, like, I don't speak that language. I love that as a really good way to help help you step down out of that imposter syndrome or putting all of that pressure on yourself. I think that's great. I love this.
I also think I'm trying
Go
to
ahead.
think of a time in my career where like something nothing has ever happened by saying I don't know. I don't think. I'm trying to think of an example, and it hasn't. Like there's been many more occasions where like I've gone and solved something and people have been like super positive about it, and it's like been like great, you've solved this problem, like fantastic. But nobody's ever gone and turned around to me and gone, you should know the answer to this. And so yeah, I think that that's a really powerful thing to remember when dealing with imposter syndrome, is that good people are never going to give you a hard time for not knowing.
Yes, that is very true. Plus, it also kind of continues into the idea of like, you're not saying like, I don't know, period, end of sentence, go away. Your time
Yeah.
is up. Like you're saying, I don't know. Let's find out. I don't know yet. So I
Yeah,
think that's great.
definitely that. Yeah.
Okay. Oh man, y'all, +1s in the chat from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 people. Oh my gosh, y'all. Thank you for chiming in on that. Okay. This is a really good question. Can you share your strategies for dealing with other people's advice, especially when it conflicts with your own instincts? Y'all, we get questions sometimes that are like, how have I been doing this for 5.5 years and I've never had to ask that question yet? This is a really good one. Okay, so let's say, we'll put you in a random scenario. Maybe you've been in this situation before, but you've got a situation, someone has given you advice, and it very much conflicts with what you are thinking should be done here. Have you had to manage this situation in your working history?
Oh yeah, both like in a sense of technical decisions and both in a sense of like human input onto how to deal with like management situations or people. And you're right, this is an absolutely fantastic question, and I jumped at the opportunity to answer this one. I think it's really important to listen to other people's advice, like acknowledge their advice, right? Like everyone as a human being deserves that courtesy, but you don't have to act on it. And I think one of the things I've definitely learned as going through my career and becoming to where I am now is the more data points you can have, the better decisions you can make. So absolutely listen to people's advice, but you don't have to act on it. And I think there's a large element of trusting yourself here. Like I know that trusting your gut is perhaps not the most data-driven approach to things, but like people are generally quite intuitive. And I think that there are some mistakes you have to make. So even, getting advice from people who are like, oh yeah, okay, you could do this, but it could blow up in your face. Sometimes things need to blow up in your face for you to learn. And yeah, exactly. And I definitely don't think I would be sat here having this opportunity with you if I hadn't had some advice and ignored it and made the mistake anyway. So I think it's also very much like about not punishing yourself when you make those mistakes. Acknowledging it, and moving on, reflecting, for those of you who work in agile, do a little internal retrospective of like what went well, what didn't go well, all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I guess it becomes much more challenging when it becomes sort of like a moral issue or something that is on a slightly more controversial topic. And luckily, I don't think I've had many, if any, of those situations. But my advice to anyone who does feel like that is discuss it with your support network, right? I mean, I'm quite lucky that I have an in-work support network. I have an out-of-work support network, which consists of people who are technical and in various different positions. And so, going to them saying, hypothetically speaking, in this scenario, what would you do? Asking for a friend is actually really helpful. So yeah, that would be what I would do.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, it's always important to remember, if you are asking for or even just kind of receiving unsolicited advice, is consider the source. Because for me, like there are plenty of people that I will ask for advice on a lot of different things, but I consider who I'm asking based on the need, right? So like I have a friend who is absolutely a genius at freaking everything. Oh my gosh. But if I have like a practical like household question, she's not the person to call, right? Like she's the person that'll help you with non like domestic things. So I think it is really important to, consider the source. But you're right, if you're looking if you're trying to sift through that information, additional viewpoints are only going to give you a better view of the problem as opposed to narrow your perspective. So I think that's really, really great advice. Thank you, Natalie. Okay, so we are about halfway through of today's event. I know it feels like it's going really fast, but I just want to encourage the audience members again, if you have questions, make sure you send them in. I've got eyes in the chat as well as in the questions bucket, so we can keep moving through those questions as well. All right, let's keep moving down the line here. All right, this one wants to know, okay, this one's from the questions bucket. How important has networking been in your career progression? And actually, before we tackle that question, when we're talking about networking, what do you think of when I say the word like networking, and how have you utilized it? What does that mean to you?
That's a very good question. So I think my view on networking has definitely changed. So if you were to ask me that when I started out in my career, it would be all the events, all the conferences, like meet all the people, and that kind of thing. And that was very much how I did start networking. And then COVID happened. And so all of a sudden conferences and events weren't a thing anymore. So building my support networks or doing my networking has very much happened like through mediums like this, right? And it was then that I started to learn that internal networking is just as powerful as, if not as powerful as, external networking. And by that I mean identify stakeholders who are on like the periphery of what you're working on, for multiple reasons. Like A, it makes your job a lot easier, but B, you ever want to think about progressing internally or like, trying something different, you've built up relationships with people that you can go and talk to who aren't directly involved. You can get a third-party opinion, but they've got some context on how the business operates and all of that kind of stuff. So I would say, like, yeah, networking is like a huge term that you could dig into in like so many different ways. But yeah, that's kind of how I tackle it. And the great thing about Moody's being absolutely enormous is that there's like so many different ways you can network. We have like a bunch of business resource groups, which are basically like internal communities for people to join. So we have like a women's BRG, a mental health BRG, and we do networking events through all of those as well. So recently I did a careers fair for women returners into work and sort of met loads of women who were looking for like new roles, particularly in tech and product and stuff like that. And they were all really fascinating. Like, they all had amazing stories and became friends with them on LinkedIn. And like, yeah, it's.
I like this. I'm always really curious to hear what people think of when they think networking, because depending on your industry or I would say probably your age range as well, is going to really determine what experience a lot of people have with it. And you're right, post-COVID, networking is both the same and also not as it was before. Like there were a lot of things that we kind of went back and started doing. But the other thing that I think is really interesting is like networking has this connotation that kind of makes it feel a lot more official. Somehow there's like higher stakes, it's more formal. But really all we're talking about is like making work friends. That's literally it, right? You just want to, you're kind of creating touch points and communication points with different people throughout either your org or your industry or people that are involved in something that you are curious about. So, I love when people are very proactive about networking, but I also love when they're a bit more casual about it and like, yeah, well, I'm kind of all the time networking because I'm making connections. I've got people that I talk to. Like that's kind of, I'm building these friendships or these relationships, and that's how you network. So I think it's really good. Oh, we did have a random question. This person just submitted saying, how can you build a tech network if you're just getting into tech or career switching? So obviously this was pre-COVID for you, but what did you do and how did you build up a tech network when you were coming out of a non-technical field?
Yeah, so I was really lucky that where I was sort of encouraged going to conferences and meetups and things like that. So if you're now looking for a role and you're not in a starting role or something like that, think about the areas of tech that you're interested in, and have a look for like local events. Yeah, there's loads now. But for example, like I said, my team are quite focused on Rust. So I know that in London there's like a big Rust meetup community that's like open to everyone, that you can go and meet people. I don't know whether this is also a thing in like areas that aren't the UK, so I'm really sorry. But there's also a thing we have called Code Bar, which is basically where you can go and meet people and they will like spend some time doing one-to-one coding and like, just yeah, like I would say just find opportunities to put yourself out there. If you've got friends that are in the industry as well, speak to them, see what their recommendations are, maybe see if you can tag along to work drinks with them or something. And yeah.
Yeah, very cool. I love these ideas. These are awesome. I completely agree with the asking your friends because again, you're just making friends. So, having somebody introduce you to a couple of the people that they know that they work with is excellent. And I also really appreciate when people recognize that you had to meet a lot of people before you met your best friend, right? You didn't just meet the first person and that's your bestie. So like when you go to networking events, not every person is going to be an amazing connection. All right. Not everybody is going to be, I don't want to say useful because that sounds really like we're treating people like commodities, but it's not always apparent right away like what that connection might be, right? And so I think it is really important that when we're talking about networking, we don't think of it in terms of like finding the one mentor you'll ever need your entire career. It's like, no, you're going to meet a lot of people. You're going to have different levels of friendship or different levels of, information exchange with them. So I think it is really helpful to recognize that like, this is something you'll be doing your entire career, not in a like marathon treadmill, it never stops kind of way, but more in a like, it's rolling and these relationships change. And there will be certain times where your relationship with one person might be a lot more influential. Who knows? Maybe the people that you're networking with, you're going to be the person that they come to eventually to be like, hey, I know you have knowledge in this. Can you teach me about it? So yeah. Oof, love this. Okay, let's talk about let's see. Okay, skills. What do you think are some of the most important skills if you want to be a successful engineering manager?
Okay. Yeah, this is a tough one. I think I'm going to preface this with a lot of people have a different interpretation of what engineering manager is, or like different companies have different expectations from what engineering managers are. So in some places, it's a still very technical heavy role. For where I am, it's very much more about like enablement of the team. So in my specific flavor of engineering management, for me, the most important skill, I suppose it's a skill, is servant leadership. It's being humble,
It's a
and putting
skill?
the ego
I,
aside. I don't know. I've never really seen it listed on a CV,
oh,
so I
come on.
don't know.
No, that,
But
yeah, yes.
yeah, okay, all right, it's a skill. But yeah, I think you know, obviously, I've done some technical stuff. I've got to the point where I am, and I have experience. It's now using that experience to not like lord over my team and say, here I am, I'm so brilliant, like you should do everything that I'm saying because I've got all this experience. It's more of a, okay, right, you have a lot on your plate right now. Like, what can we get rid of? Like, what can I do for you? Okay, I see you need to book all these meetings with random people. like, give that to me. I'll go and book the meetings, right? Like, I'm not above sitting and playing and, you know, doing admin or whatever. Like 95% of my role is admin these days. And yeah, so I think, yeah, I think honestly, the biggest thing is just being humble. And yeah. And the other thing is being kind, not nice. I don't know whether anyone has read like Radical Candor by Kim Scott or anything like that. Very much subscribe to this mentality of, you know, being honest with people is the best kindness you can give them. Like particularly like with, I find with more junior team members, like giving them a pat on the head and saying, yes, everything is fine, you're doing really well, when actually what they need is like a bit more structure. It's not being kind to them. Yeah, I'd say that those are the two biggest skills. And learning to be kind is actually quite hard, particularly if you like me and you have like people pleasing tendencies. Like I want everyone to like think the best of me all the time. So the idea originally of like having to, you know, be not almost critical, but, you know, give these almost like harsh truths to people to help them develop, which they generally want to hear. They don't want to be taught, you know, they want to hear it.
Well, and nobody gives you feedback because they don't care where you're going.
Exactly.
You know?
I had an old rowing coach say to me that, you know, the worst thing that could ever happen was that if you did an entire rowing outing and you didn't get any feedback from the coach, because at that point they've given up on you. And that is a bad place to be, right? So if I'm not getting feedback from like my team or my peers or my leaders, then at that point I start worrying, because it's like, okay, I'm clearly doing something wrong. So yeah.
You're killing me with all these rowing mentions, because I actually was on the rowing team in high school and then was recruited to be a Division I coxswain for Indiana for college.
Amazing.
So I love that. So it's the second you started saying rowing, all I wanted to do was ask like, oh, were you in a scull? What seat did you do? Did you do double? Like, oh my gosh. No, like yes, exactly. If the coach isn't saying anything to you, it's because they've kind of given up, or a lot of times I've seen this happen when somebody's just they're not using the feedback. So the person's not going to waste their time and their attention trying to give you more feedback if you're not going to take action on it. So I do think that that's a really, really good way to look at it and kind of think from the perspective of like, all right, why is this so valuable, and why do I need to be paying so much attention to it? And I also really appreciate how many people in the chat were chiming in saying that like, yeah, that's a soft skill, you know, and those are really important, but also like they're core skills. These are skills that you will need your entire life. They just make certain things in your professional life a lot easier if you are able to recognize the difference between being nice to someone and being kind to someone. Like two very, very different things there. I love these distinctions. These are great. Oh, I also threw a link in the chat to where you can buy the Radical Candor book she talked about. I'm not trying to send y'all Bezos links, so mine's I think 8 books. But you know, it's been out for a while. It's a really good book, but I threw the link up in there in case y'all want it.
The other one that I found really helpful was Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. That one was really helpful in like trying to develop a servant leadership mentality, if anyone is interested in that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know about you, but anytime I've had a leader they didn't have to do all the things that I was doing. They had to be willing to do all the things that they ask someone else to do.
Yeah.
And so I think that is very important, and you know, kind of like you said earlier, can be a little bit difficult to develop that as a style when you're also trying to not put extra pressure on yourself or assume that you need to have all the answers. If you look at it from more of a servant leadership perspective, you get to understand that kind of there's a balance to be found there, right? Between like serving the team and supporting the team as they do the work. So yeah. Kiana is chiming in the chat saying, I've told people to quote, hurt my feelings. Don't be malicious, but tell me the truth, even if you think it will hurt my feelings. How can I ask of someone what I'm not willing to give? So in turn, as a practice, I must give people hard truths. Otherwise, I'm doing them a disservice and possibly denying them an opportunity for growth. Kiana, you hit the nail on the head with that one, because that is the biggest thing that people talk about is if you are not giving feedback to someone, you are denying them an opportunity for growth. So for me, that helps me to like speak up a lot more often and be like, hey, I saw you did this, but it would be so much easier for you if you did it this way. Because like it truly is like people don't give you advice if they don't care about you developing. So yeah. All right, let's go back to our questions bucket here and see what the people want to learn. Okay, this is a good one. What advice would you give to someone just starting their tech career, especially if they're coming from a non-tech background?
Yes. So I think honestly with this one, I would go back to when I was interviewing and making this decision. Um, and when I'm interviewing now, it's far more important to me when I am interviewing, particularly for junior candidates, for people who are excited and curious about learning and the tech and that kind of stuff than people who already have like have done like a computer science degree or whatever. I think that your soft skills are just as, if not more important than than the technical ones. Like my honest opinion is you can teach people tech. You can teach people to code. You can teach people this stuff. It's much harder to teach people soft skills and how to be proactive and driven. Like, sometimes you just can't teach people those things. So my advice to anyone starting out is honestly, be curious. Like, be curious about everything and ask questions, ask all the questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. Like, believe
Yeah.
me, we've all asked. Yeah, like, yeah, be curious, try new things, experiment, make mistakes. Like,
Well, that
yeah,
goes back to what you said earlier, right? Like our brains are not designed to learn from success. Success doesn't teach us anything. We learn from failure. So, I love this advice to go out and make mistakes and fail fast, because if you are looking at someone who knows a lot of stuff or has risen up in their field, you are looking at someone who has made a lot of mistakes.
yeah, definitely. And I think the other advice that I really want to give is I see a lot of places now when interviewing that want, like, give us a link to your GitHub or whatever project you've done. When I was a junior software engineer, I was learning to code. It was my 9 to 5. The last thing I wanted to do when I got home in the evening was think about opening an IDE and writing more code. Like, I get it, for some people it's a passion and they absolutely love it and it is their hobby, but you do not have to make it your entire personality, right? Like, there are plenty of ways you can demonstrate that you've got an analytical brain or that you can handle the tech side of things without having to contribute to multiple open source projects and have an entire repo of, good stuff to share with interviewers. Yeah.
That's appreciated. As someone who sits through these a lot and absolutely always is like, I hear a lot from recruiters and stuff, like, and it is good, right? It's good if you are a person that likes to volunteer and you want to volunteer your tech skills for this project or something. That's awesome. We love to hear it. And it definitely does go to show, like, yeah, this is a passion of mine. But I really appreciate that. I really, really appreciate you calling out that, like, just because you have these skills does not mean this has to be your entire personality. I very much appreciate
Definitely.
that. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? Okay, this person had asked, what strategies have you found effective for improving communication skills?
Ooh.
Right? This is a good one.
Yeah, this is a good one. Honestly, I think it very much depends on who you're trying to communicate with. So I think one of the things, if I'm honest, I thought would be much easier than it actually has been, is translating tech requirements into business requirements. So, in my brain, like, I understand this is the technical problem and I understand this is the business problem that we're trying to solve. Like, for me, it makes sense. But I'm now that bridge between those two people, and some of those are entirely non-technical, and some of those are incredibly very technical, and they don't always like see eye to eye. So this is where I sit, and the fact that it makes sense in my head means I must be good at it, right? How hard can it be? And it, oh no, have I got a news flash for you? It's actually incredibly hard, and different stakeholders will want different information. Some will want the technical in-depth updates. Others will want just a, yes, this is fine, whatever, carry on. So, and particularly again, then as a manager, I've got team members, some that are quite neurodivergent and much prefer like text-based communication all the time. I've got other team members that would quite happily, when they message me saying, have you got 5 minutes? I know that I'm not getting anything done for the rest of the hour. So I think your communication style very much has to adapt to the people you're working with and or the information that people need. So what strategies have I developed for improving that is very much around getting feedback from people. So once, you know, I've had an interaction with a new person or a new team member, it's like, have you got all the information that you need? Have I given it to you in a way that is suitable for you? And if not, like, what can I do better next time to make that easier for you? So yeah, that's kind of like my go-to strategy now is to try and like analyze people and what they want, and then yeah, tailor things to their needs.
I like that. A lot of people had kind of a modifier to this question. Apologies, y'all. I've been hanging out with too many D&D nerds, but like they wanted to know if there's anything else to know about developing communication skills around difficult conversations. I struggle with this as well.
This is really hard, particularly like in terms of giving feedback. And I was really lucky that I went on an internal like Moody's leadership course last year, where they taught us about the SBID framework. So situation, behavior, implication, and development. So now whenever I need to have a hard conversation with anyone about like feedback or even just anything, I write down first like the situation, the behavior, the impact, and what needs to change. And running through that script very much for me puts it into like perspective of like, is the feedback I'm giving first of all reasonable and fair? Because if I can't you know, put the situation and the behavior together, like, is it actually just something I've perceived that, you know, is a pet peeve of mine rather than an actual issue? And it's a very sort of like nice, encapsulated, safe way to do things because it's all fact driven. I think giving difficult conversations becomes incredibly hard when you bring feelings into it. So trying to bring the feelings out of it is very difficult. Then at the same time, you don't want to go from like, and this is definitely something I've had to learn as well, is that, you know, I can be very laughy, jokey with my team in stand-up and then need to go and have a conversation with someone, and all of a sudden it's like clinical deadpan, right? You know, this is we're serious now. So it's like trying to find that balance of like being human about giving feedback, but doing it in a way that is factual and objective and not sterile.
Yeah, no, I think that's really, really excellent advice. The other thing I can bring to the table as somebody who I am hyper specific when it comes to communication. Especially if you are trying to have a conversation and if there's emotions involved, or if you're just not really sure like what to say, how to start it. Take it from my therapist, Julie, big ups to you. Start with, this is a first draft. That for me is nice. A game changer of like, go with me on this. It's a first draft as I'm like talking through what I think that the issue might be. The other part that I really enjoy is, I don't mean to sound blank, blank, blank. This is my intention is not to make you mad or to insult you or whatever. That being said, here's the phrase. And again, I do not want to cause this problem, but can we, knowing that this is an issue or this could be a foreseeable result of this conversation, I don't want you to feel like that, but I'm not sure how to explain it. But that's not what I'm going for. So that one's a little bit more feelings based, but very, very useful skills, especially.
I'm going to borrow that one.
They're good. I'm telling you, man, take from the best and keep on moving. Okay, let's see. What other questions do we have? Oh, all right. This is a good one. What do you look for when hiring new team members, especially people who might be tech newbies?
Yeah. Okay. So this follows on nicely from the question earlier. It's a willingness to learn. If I was interviewing for a junior engineer right now, I would be looking for someone who's really excited, like, about also the product that we make, and is really interested in the space, as well as like is excited to learn tech. Are they going to work well with my other team members? Are they going to come in and you know? And my favorite thing about juniors is they ask questions, right? And what they think is like, they think is a stupid question. I've seen senior engineers go, actually, oh, that's a really good point. Why are we doing it that way? And I think that, yeah, juniors are a very powerful tool to have in your team. And so, yeah, so I guess when interviewing, I'm looking for people who are asking lots of questions, are taking opportunities, particularly in technical interviews, to, you know, we do an hour-long technical interview. That's like an hour of free code coaching, right? Like, take advantage of that. Like, you've got two senior engineers that are going to sit with you for an hour and talk you through like your problem solving. Like, even at the end of the day, you know, if hopefully you will get the job, but if you don't, that'll cost you a lot of money in the real world, right? So ask questions, leverage that, learn. So yeah, that for me, it's excitement, curiosity. Yeah, there's a mixture of soft skills as well, like someone who's, yeah, personable. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, you want to try and get a sense of who that person is and what they can bring to the team. But like you said earlier, you know, you can teach the hard skills. Hard skills, like there's whole training courses dedicated to teaching the hard skills. You might be on your own when it comes to the soft skills, but you're not really. You're just, you don't have as developed a framework to work within, let's say. I think that's excellent.
Absolutely.
All right. Okay, we have 3 minutes left. I know I thought I see, I told you it would go a lot faster than we thought. They never believed me, y'all, ever. All right. Now we've got about 3 minutes left. I want to take the conversation back to Moody's a little bit. You've mentioned some of the you know, the leadership courses that they've done for you and that kind of thing. I want to know, what is the thing that keeps you at Moody's? What is the thing that's like, I'm not going to find this anyplace else, so this is why I want to be here?
So when I was writing my notes for this and I knew this question was coming, I didn't even need to think about it. It was down before I could even, yeah, it's the people. It will always be the people. I know that sounds like a crazy cliche, but like,
cliches are cliches because they're true, because we spend so much time in these places. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, like, you know, I'm spending, you know, 35 hours a week with these people. I want to know that they're, you know, good humans, and they are. I'm continually inspired by my team. I have like people that I value as now friends. I learn every day. We have a laugh. Yeah, like I honestly, yeah, the people are just incredible. I could sit here and go on about them for ages.
Excellent. I love to hear it. All right, y'all, we are just about at the end of time, so I want to take a quick minute here to remind y'all about Moody's. Obviously, they are hiring. They've got open roles and stuff. This is what their company page looks like. If you look right above me, sorry, I got to work on my weatherman pointing still. But this is what Moody's company page looks like. If anything that we have said in the last, 60 minutes has piqued your interest about Moody's, I very much recommend that you go to their company page and take a look at them. They've got a bunch of open roles. You can find those in the jobs tab. The events tab is going to hold things like this recording once it goes live. I actually don't think we won't be going live with this recording today, y'all. I think there's like channels it has to go through first. So the recording will come out. It's just not going to be as fast as some of the other ones. So apologies. I got going on my shtick this earlier and forgot about that. But the other thing I want to highlight here is events tab. So that'll be, events that are coming up in the future. You can also see recordings of past events. The other thing I like to highlight here is the follow network. So smashing that pink button at the top of the screen is going to both allow Power to Fly to tell Moody's that you're interested in working with them even before you fill out an application. This is especially helpful if you are actively job seeking but don't see a position right this second that you are ready to apply to. So it's a really good way to make sure that you stay on Moody's radar. The other thing it's going to allow is for Power to Fly to let you know when Moody's posts new roles. So that way you don't have to keep coming back and refreshing job boards. So if you have any questions on this or ways that you can utilize Power to Fly to help you in your job search, please feel free to reach out to us. Our email inbox is hi@powertofly.com. All right, y'all, that is going to bring us to the end of today's event, but I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who joined us. Nathalie, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us. This has been wonderful. I've loved getting to know you for the last hour, and I really hope we get to do this again soon.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
All right, massive thank you to all of my frequent flyers, as well as our people who might be new here. We are so thankful. Obviously, I love that you come to these events because it means I have a job, but I love that you come to these events even more because you just took 60 minutes out of your day to do something positive for yourself and your career. That is not easy. And whether you are a little treat person or not, listen to Meg, okay? Give yourself the pat on the back, the cookie, the sticker, the gold, the Starbucks drink, whatever is your treat of choice in the dumpster fire of life. Go for it. All right, y'all deserve it. I hope that you will join us. Whether this was your first event or your 50th, I sincerely hope it will not be your last. And I hope that y'all go out and have the day you deserve today. Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much.